Hi, I'm Iliana Limon-Romero here with Alicia DelGallo.
Hello.
We are so excited to talk about Orlando City Soccer. We are wrapping up.
Yeah.
Team played their final game of the regular season and really their final game of the season. So Alicia, take us back, take us through what happened. How was that final game? Is it everything that you'd expected?
Yeah, I mean, this season it was tough to ever expect anything of the team, but they were really hoping to bring home a win in front of the home crowd to end the season. They wanted to end it on a high note, not only for the fans to give them hope for next year, but give the club themselves and the players a little bit of confidence going into the off season and just wrap everything up nicely. So they were able to do that with a big win, 4-2 over DC United, and everybody was happy.
Yeah, quite a variety in goal scorers,
Yeah.
different people getting opportunities, different players getting opportunities, a lot of emotion. Really seemed like it seemed cathartic. It seemed like it was a good experience for them. And Julio Bautista scoring one of those goals too. Everybody was just pushing.
He right away when he came into the club, he already was one of the most productive goal scorers based on the number of minutes that he was playing, and I think he's continued that through the season. You put him on in the last 2 minutes, and he always makes something happen. So it was nice to see it again.
I thought you said one of the coaches had told you something about it. What do they say when they're putting Julio in? It seems like they're just ready for him. They bought in too. They think he's going to score right away. Just let him go in and score seems to be the mentality. We'll just put Julio in and let him go in and score.
Either score or pull a penalty in the box.
Same. Works well. All right, so very interesting, just a very loud crowd. I watched it back from our office space, and you could just hear a lot of rowdiness from the crowd. They were really into it. They were really chanting and cheering the whole time. And, it'll be interesting to see in the new stadium how much more that reverberates with the construction.
I think it's going to be huge.
Yeah, it's going to be
the noise is going to be outrageous, I think, in there.
Quite the game day atmosphere.
Yeah, especially with the roof over. It's going to be pretty intense.
It's going to be pretty exciting. All right, so we're looking forward to it. We know they are too. We asked for questions ahead of time. This is our Twitter Q&A, so we're very excited about some of the questions that already were submitted to @OS Lions. We're also on Facebook Live. We thank you for joining us there. And if you have any questions, you can feel free to post them there or send some last stoppage time questions to @OS Lions, and we'll do our best to go through all of them. This is going to be our last show for the regular season because we will be wrapping up. Orlando City has wrapped up the season. There's not a ton more for us to go through right out of the gate. Down the line, there may be some off-season shows if there's a lot of news and things going on, and then it's a very short MLS break, so it'll be okay. All right, so first question from Twitter, McMarston, @Muck_Marston. Will OCSC be looking for a new GM in the offseason, or are they content with Nikki and Phil running things? So for those who don't know, who are Nikki and Phil?
Nikki has been the assistant GM. So he has really taken on a role this year, though, of working with the player acquisitions and movement and things like that as a strong suit of his, and he's taken on more of the general manager role in conjunction with Phil Rollins, the president and co-founder that you all know very well. So the two of them have kind of been working together to fill this GM role, and I do have some news about where that's going to lead. The short answer is that no, they will not be looking for a GM in the off season, but I have more details on that, and I'll be posting it on OrlandoSentinel.com about in the next hour or so. So if you are very interested in what movement will happen, then go check it out there.
All right, excellent. Very interesting to see how the club's going to structure things moving forward. All right, our next question on Twitter from Ian F. @IFNORL. After another strong season from Bendik, were you surprised he didn't get called up for the U.S. men's national team consideration?
Well, first, it was a strong season for Bendik, obviously, but I wouldn't say another strong season from Bendik because his season last year was not very strong. He was actually nominated for Comeback Player of the Year by MLS this year because he didn't play much in Toronto, and so he had a breakout year this year for sure. I wouldn't say that I'm surprised he wasn't called up, but I do understand the calls from fans and people watching the games of, wanting him to get a call from the U.S. men's national team, but I think the end of the season, so many goals being scored against Orlando City, even though a lot of that wasn't all on Bendik, it was the back line, but he didn't get a lot of help from them. But because so many goals were scored, that hurt him a little bit. And then also, I think before you get a call-up, he's got to show that he can string together more than just one season of positive performances.
Absolutely. I think I totally agree with that. I also think there's a lot of competition at that position for the national team, so that's the other hard part. You have to look at players both within MLS and those elsewhere that are getting looks. All right, so as I mentioned, we are streaming on Facebook Live, and we already have a Facebook Live question.
Okay.
This is a popular one because fans are a little bit critical of Seb Hines, but Ryan Kirchie wants to know, is Hines gone yet? So obviously, no. None of the players have been...
Not yet.
No one has met with any of the players, but what's the timeline of what we can expect for them to start meeting?
Basically, what's going to happen this week is Jason Kreis and the coaching staff are going to present a plan to management, and they're going to say this is what we think. They're going to break down evaluations of all the players of the team and what they want to do moving forward, and then they'll start implementing what they can. They'll be working on deals, seeing who they can get. Of course, they're going to have lists of their top choices and things like that, and try to work things out with contracts. Not everything always goes as planned and ideal, but Jason will be meeting with players, I was told November 1st and 2nd, to kind of sit them down and tell them what they're going to be doing moving forward with it club. So we expect to hear some announcements, some releases immediately after that, and we'll be ready. But with Seb, when it comes to Seb, he is not gone yet. I would not be surprised if he were, considering the problems that his knee has produced this year. I know that it was really tough for him playing on turf, but none of his performances were particularly inspiring, I'll put it that way, and plagued with injuries again. So it's definitely something to consider strongly moving forward, but I know that there's going to be a focus on fixing that back line, and I don't know that he's going to be a part of that.
Right. I think that at the beginning of the season, he did have some bright moments for sure. There were some early headers, some other promising opportunities, but the wear and tear definitely got to him. And really, you're looking at a tactical change in the system where you need somebody to really contribute. I'm not sure he's an ideal fit, but surely the club is very happy with everything he's done for them so far to date, and we'll see exactly how that plays out. But you're looking at another week before we get final confirmation and some things like that. But thanks for the question, Ryan. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Anyone else want to ask any questions on Facebook Live, feel free to fire away. We're going to go back to some of the Twitter questions that were submitted in advance. Another one from Ian F. IFNORL. Do you expect a change in the DP players? If so, how does it affect Rivas and MPG?
I 100% expect a change in the DP players. The one that I think is most likely is Brian Roches not coming back and not being a DP player anymore, and that opens up some flexibility with what they want to do with Rivas and MPG. Of course, that opens up a spot for MPG, depending on the deal that they made with San Jose, if he will count as a DP player for Orlando City. And then it also opens up the opportunity to either bring another DP in, possibly decide whether they want to try to buy down Rivas because he's a young DP, so his number is a lot lower than older DPs. They'll have some flexibility, but I think MPG will be able to move into the slot opened by Brian Roches.
All right, very interesting. We have another question from Facebook from Nick Baggio. Who would be the players available for the expansion team? So we have an expansion draft coming up. Orlando City has some mechanisms that they can go through that would allow them to protect players.
Yes.
And then a list of players will be available for selection. Now, these are coveted secrets until the protected list goes out, just because obviously it's a competitive advantage to not have your full list out there, especially as you're doing contract negotiations. But I can flip that question around to something maybe we can answer, which is, if you were looking at this roster, who do you think automatically would be protected off the top of your head? It seems like Kaká.
Yeah, definitely Kaká. I think definitely they're going to protect Kyle Larin because they're not going to want someone to just poach him. MPG, 100%. Jason Kreis's guy that he brought in that he really likes. I think Molino will be protected. Kreis mentioned that there were some players who have given a lot to this team that he thinks are the heart of the team moving forward, and I can't think of another player that's given more to the team than Kevin Molino. Some of the younger players, Mikey Ambrose, I think they see great potential in him moving forward, and
Joe Bendick.
Oh, yeah. Joe
Joe Bendik,
obviously.
actually, I think, the keepers in general, they're very happy with their keeper rotation.
Yep.
So Rhonda Carrasco is one who's had experience,
100%.
who's played a great role for them in the transition. So that gives you an idea of some of the others. Rafa Ramos is one that I think is going to be interesting, whether they decide to protect him, because I think he's a great contributor, and I think some other teams would like him.
I think some other teams would be very intrigued by him. I think
someone in Atlanta would be very intrigued by him in particular. So we'll see. That's going to be an interesting development, and that's all part of the decisions that are being made this week of how they try to rearrange some things. There's a couple of things. We get the MLS salary list, which is fantastic. We appreciate the Players Association doing that, but we don't get the duration of contracts. That's something that MLS policy and club policy we don't always get. So there's some where it's a little unclear whether they're under multi-year contracts or not. That would definitely have an impact on those lists as well.
Yeah.
So be interesting to see. We got a couple of questions on those. So thanks to Nick, Brian, Paul. I hope we try to answer your question as best we can. You can rephrase it again. Let us know if there's anything you'd like for us to clarify. And again, more poor Seb Hines. Travis Jordan would like to say,
I think there's one on Twitter
that
him
Seb
as well.
needs to go. Can we vote him off the island? No, you can't. You couldn't vote Nocerino off. You can't vote Seb off. But I would have faith.
People don't want to vote Nocerino off anymore.
They did before, though.
Yeah,
You got to have faith in your front office. I got to think that Jason Christ is a highly competitive person, and he knows what he needs to do to get this team on track. So, all right, some questions from Twitter. Thanks to the Facebook crew. ENF. IF and ORL, is OCB moving to Lake Nona? Very popular question all throughout the year.
No, they have no plans to move. They're going to stay competing where they're at. They liked it over there. They thought it worked well for them. So that's a no. And then there's also another part to that of why maybe even no even more. That makes sense. The Lake Nona training facility will not be open in time for the start of next season. So it's not going to be open until later in the year, which is not ideal for everybody, especially the Orlando Pride, who have had to bounce around from between 3 different training facilities this year. Obviously, it's not a great situation for them, but I've been told that they are working on a permanent place for the Pride until Lake Nona is set so that they will not have to bounce around again next year.
Yeah, it's a lot of building that was going to be happening all at once, and I think Orlando City unquestionably makes the right call, saying, look, we're going to get the stadium finished, get it finished on time, do it at the highest level possible, do it the way we want it to. And I think you want to not squander your opportunity and rush Lake Nona either. This is a huge advantage you can potentially build out, and if you structure it right, if you do your master plan right, you can potentially add to it long term, add academy housing that they talked with you about down the line, different things that can really give the Orlando soccer community a huge edge. So I'm not surprised by that. It was hard for OCB. There were some bumps, no question. I think there were a lot of pro soccer needs moving into a college complex that was really a small college complex, not enough stuff that they needed. But I think they've worked through the growing pains.
Press boxes.
Like press boxes. I think they've worked through some of the growing pains. There are still going to be some challenges. And I know it would be nice to be able to bounce to all the games, but I think that they've rightfully identified that there's only so much money in the Orlando market to support so many teams.
Right,
and if you bring 3 teams in, that's a lot.
Those, wonderful fans out there that want to go to all 3 of the teams' games, that's fantastic, but it's a small contingency and they don't want to oversaturate the market. So that was part of the purpose of going to Melbourne in the first place, to try to, not just shove soccer down your throat in Orlando.
It's hard. It would be hard for them to find the proper venues, and I think even they're trying to also give the Pride an opportunity to take flight and really grow in the new stadium. So all those things are big challenges, but down the road it could still happen. But for this upcoming season, that's a no. So Travis Jordan wanted to know, when does the schedule get released for next year? We're not even done with the MLS playoffs. So we want next year's schedule. Not for a while, Travis.
It'll be a little while.
It's usually like February, I want to say.
We're focusing on playoffs and the drafts and all the movement that's coming. But it'll be out soon. I'll let you guys know as soon as I know an exact date. All
right, thanks for the question, Travis. All right, next question on Twitter. McMarston, at @Muck_Marston. Any idea whether or not OCSC will make the AHA move permanent?
This is a tricky one because AHA has done well for himself in MLS, and with that may come interest from other clubs as well. And because he's only on a 6-month loan, it would be, an easy transition to anywhere he went. So I know that Orlando City is pleased with him and happy with him. When asked if he would be signing a contract extension. I was told that it's possible, and he would be a great contributor and could have a good career in MLS. So I think that he's one that they're undecided on yet, and might depend on what other options present themselves moving forward. But he definitely wants to stay. He wants to sign a contract. He wants to stay in Orlando. He likes it here, and I know that they're pleased with his performance, like I said. But I think they might entertain some offers for him or see if they can get anything.
I think it's a credit to the club and to the people in this community that so many of the players that you interviewed absolutely wanted to stay.
Oh, yeah.
No question, they felt the level of professionalism, the level of fan support was such that they wanted to be here. Is that really representative? It's what I heard, but is that representative of everyone you talked to?
Pretty much, yeah. There wasn't really anyone that said, like, no, I definitely want to get out of here. Everybody who might be kind of on the questionable list was like, I want to stay.
All right.
That's up to the coaches, but I want to stay.
All right, should be interesting. All right, we're still taking your questions via Facebook Live, so keep them coming. Thanks for all the questions so far. If you're just using Twitter and watching us on OrlandoSentinel.com, awesome. You can send stoppage time questions to @OSLions. All right, our next question posted in advance via Twitter from, again, McMarston, @Mc_Marston. Ramos seemed to come off with an injury. Is there any information as to what the injury was? Is Rafa Ramos healthy?
Yes, he's healthy. There was no injury. He was just taken off and Alston subbed on.
Let's talk a little bit more about Rafa, because I think he's kind of interesting in how he's played the last two games. What were your thoughts on what he did for himself at the end of the season?
I think he really proved to the coaches and everyone that he can be a force in the games and he can do what they're asking him to do, and the passion that he's showing them in training sessions every week will translate to the playing field. And so they wanted to see if he could string two positive performances together. I think he did that. I think that this past performance wasn't as good as the previous one, but it was by no means a bad performance at all. But it is a little concerning when things start to get close at the end there and DC comes within one goal that Christ takes Ramos off and puts Alston back on. So you can see that there might be a little bit of a trust issue, and that whether that comes from what he's seen from Ramos in training or that he's just seen more of Alston and knows that Alston is a reliable figure is to be seen. So, Alston's the veteran. He has more experience. He's older, but I think Ramos's potential is just through the roof.
It was very interesting to hear on the broadcast for the last game, Lewis Neal, very insightful analyst, color commentator, who really went on there and just said, as you said, Ramos has tremendous potential through the roof ceiling, but it's the 1v1 battles where he has the most room to improve. And that's really exactly what you highlighted. A close game, as things start to tighten up, they're going to go with Alston, who is more comfortable in those 1v1 battles. And as soon as he came on, Alston went ahead, had a great tackle in key position, and really helped Orlando City flip the field. So that's the kind of things that you're going to see. But Rafa, certainly emotional, high-impact player, fun to watch. It will be great to see what happens with him next.
Definitely.
All right, we have another Facebook question. This one's from Diego Hirata. Will there be a search for another striker? Is there a need for depth up top?
I think it's going to depend on what they do with Rivas and Laren, obviously. Rumors that are going around. He has a lot of potential and some interest from Europe, but I don't think the interest from Europe is as great as it's been made out to be. I was talking to Phil Rollins yesterday, and he said it's only been a little bit of interest. It hasn't been as prolific as everybody has made it seem. So it's been a little bit of interest from overseas on Laren, but they really think that this is where he should develop further. But it'll be interesting to see. I think they'll be looking at options for the future. Maybe bring someone in that they want to develop for the future, for when those players leave, because their departure is inevitable. It's just whether it's this season or not.
Let's put this in perspective, because we have a question, well, sort of a comment from William Herdada, potential equals not getting it done. So Laren fell short. That's the goal total.
Was that
Last
about
year,
Ramos or was that about Laren?
Trade Laren now.
Oh.
Get the money while you can. So you go from
Okay.
the rookie record, then you go down to 14 goals. So the rookie record, I believe, 17. Go down to 14 goals. Still a highly productive season. What are they seeing that William perhaps is not?
Well, they're seeing, okay, so when Laren was on a little bit of a scoring drought, and it's not as fun to see him play when he's not scoring and going towards the net like he did last season, but it was partly because he was targeted so much more. He had a bullseye on his back this season, and some of the things that maybe when he wasn't scoring, he was drawing players away from other players, allowing other players to score. He's taking a lot of hits. He was taking a brutal beating. He's a big physical guy, and guys were beating up on him. So it's even just his presence on the field helps any team in that aspect. So that's what they're seeing. They're also realizing there were a lot of movements, a lot of changes, a lot of roster changes, a lot of lineup changes throughout the year. So that could have been difficult for him to deal with as well. But I don't think
there's any
disappointed at all.
Any coach in the league that would give away 14 goals, would not be happy with the striker chipping in 14 goals.
Yeah.
It's a significant performance, a significant effort. So we will see. We will go for there. We had an earlier question from Brian Paul. Again, everybody's antsy to get to next season already because it's over, because they're not going to the playoffs. There's no playoff game. And so Brian Paul wanted to know, any word on the new first kit for 2017?
No. No word on that yet.
No, I think you're going to see them get through the mechanisms of all these different things, continue to work on the stadium, and then the development of the kit is going to be something that you'll see closer again to February and March. It's part of usually a big rollout. I expect tons of stuff surrounding the hype of the new stadium, all the energy and excitement, and that's when you're going to start to see the first of the new kits.
They also have some in the next coming months with all the changes they're going to be making to personnel. They're also have some stadium events scheduled and ceremonies and things like that, like putting the first seats in, and so that's really a focus through the end of the year.
All right, so I want to flip one more of these questions from William Herdada, who's still not sold on Laren.
Okay.
So the work rate, one of the things that Jason Christ came in and said was, I expect them to work, and he's challenged a lot of players who were definitely more offensive minded to get in on the defensive side, and that includes Laren. And I think there was some criticism maybe of how much work he did when he just wasn't set up for goals. Have you seen progress from where maybe some of these players that traditionally played up top have contributed to the defense? Is Christ seeing progress from when he first started to where the season ended in terms of defensive contributions from the entire group?
It's been strange because you'll have games where you would see a lot of progress in that area, and then the next game it would be like there was none all over again. So it was very up and down. Christ believes that he's about 50% of the way there in what he was trying to accomplish, and so he has a significant amount to go and a lot of work to do. But yeah, I saw improvements with Laren. I think in this last game when granted he came on late, but when he came on, he really came on with the fire in him. So like I said, Laren is providing other things besides goals when he's on the field, and he's, like you said, he still scored 14 goals. He's still among the top goal scorers in MLS, and what everybody is saying wasn't a good performance or a good year from him, but it was still a good year.
All right, so we got a couple more Facebook questions I'm going to roll through real quick. Diego Arata wants to know, do you think there are some lessons to learn or some things to learn from our inaugural year brothers at NYCFC, their roster, their coach, their style of play? So they're obviously in the playoffs and doing well right now.
Yeah.
Is there something that can be learned from them? I mean, aside from them getting a half a year head start on their rebuild under a new coach, any thoughts on anything that can be learned from them and what they did and how they were able to accomplish this getting into the playoffs, Orlando City not getting in the playoffs?
Yeah, I think a lot can be learned. I think it shows the impact that certain players can have when you bring in star players and big names and they perform to their potential. But also in the beginning of the season, they were getting a lot of flack, just like Orlando City was for those players not performing or injuries and things like that. They were able to turn it around. But I think part of that was because the coaching change came in the off season. So Vieira had an entire season to kind of refocus and implement what he was doing. I think in a year, it's hard to compare the two when in 1 year things were pretty stable with NYC, and in this year for Orlando, there was just so much going on. There was the coaching change, there was the Pulse shooting, which, not using it as an excuse, but it's another emotional thing that they had to go through. Just the ups and downs, the injuries, playing on the turf. It was just, there were a lot more things that Orlando had to deal with.
There were a lot more distractions. I think the other thing is, Orlando took a chance on some young players when they started this club. They decided to go for a mix of a little bit of MLS experience, some really high-profile veteran play, and a lot of young players. And that was a whole club decision. That wasn't just an Adrian Heath decision. And some of that worked out tremendously. Kyle Aaron obviously has been outstanding. There have been other players who have been great, and others that did not work out. Brian Roches, one of your designated players, is not with the club right now and is not looking to have a long-term future at MLS. So that gives you a sense of where things didn't go the right way, and that's not something you can quickly correct. That's not something that you can easily adjust, and this is a critical period for the club for that exact reason. All right, a couple more questions. Breck Shea from William Hurtado, is Breck Shea gone? One of the huge improvements from Christ's leadership was that the men calmed down and stopped throwing temper tantrums with the refs. So that's kind of a two-parter. I think there was more discipline, player discipline, fewer cards.
I think there was an improvement on discipline throughout the entire year, though, from last year. So I think it was progress. When Jason came in, there were still too many players on yellow card accumulation warnings, getting booted out each week. But yeah, I think Breck Shea is a big question mark right now. Christ said that his injury will not impact how he feels of him for the future, but there's no doubt that a player who did not perform up to his potential this year, a player that takes a huge chunk of salary and now also is injured, is at risk.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see. I think this is one of those situations where some details of the contract that we don't know come into play, and there's just a whole lot of things, but definitely
they also have to see if someone will take it.
Yeah, you have to see what the options are. See what the options are and try to make the best move possible for Breck and for the club. Do you think Bods will hold the left back position going into the new season? This is from Rick Wolves. I think that's the revisiting of the back line. Am I right?
Yeah, I don't think Bods holds it. I really like Bods, but I think you saw towards the end of the season with Ambrose playing more, they really believe in Ambrose and his potential and his performances as well. So I think, unfortunately, that Bods will not hold on to the position.
Okay. Travis Jordan asked again about the back line. I think we've touched on it quite a bit. This is an area that they definitely see, just like the fans do. It's a room for improvement, tons of room for improvement. Put a ton of pressure on Benedict, put a ton of pressure on the entire team. And it's something that's definitely going to see some changes, whether that's player changes or tactical changes. It's just going to see changes because it wasn't working. From Brian Paul, any word on what Inchi has been up to?
Yeah, if you didn't see, he made a television appearance for the MLS Live show and was every bit as entertaining as expected with his comments, especially on Drogba. But he's still, I spoke with Harrison Heath last week, and he said that his dad is still looking to find a coaching job. He hasn't gotten anything solid yet, but he's not giving up on that either.
It's early. I mean, his move was mid-season. That's kind of unusual, and now's the time when a lot of these positions open up now into the early part of next year. So I think we'll start to hear more and more from him. And I was surprised he was at the stadium for the last game.
Yeah. He was at the stadium for the last game. He, walking through the concourse, stopped and said hi to some media members and Orlando City staff. So it was just, I think, good for everyone to see him there supporting the team after everything that happened.
Yeah, it's quite the way to close out Camping World Stadium / Citrus Bowl era for Orlando City. All right. Thank you guys for all the Facebook Live questions. You can keep them coming, but we're going to go back to some of the ones that were submitted in advance via Twitter. Kyle Meardo, Meards.
Hey, Meard.
Is Christ getting ready for a future without Laren up top? So we touched on this a little bit, Kyle, but thoughts on whether...
I think he's definitely getting ready for a future without him up top. He knows that that's in, within the next few years. Whether that's as soon as everyone's expecting, I'm not convinced yet. I believe that there's a lot to consider when it comes to Kyle, but I do know that his contract is not up. He has a few more years on it, so it'll depend.
It'll depend. I don't think it's a short-term solution, but maybe a long-term one that they've got to keep an eye on. And then, of course, there's always the injury wild card, which I would wish on no one, but you have to be ready for it anyway. All right, next question on Twitter. We have from Ken M. at KenMad12. Why is Tommy Redding not playing? Seb has really struggled lately. That's an interesting question about Tommy.
So Tommy had some injuries as well that he was battling through, but a lot of people were concerned when he was healthy and still was not being played. So I spoke with CJ Brown, who works with the defense a lot, and he said that after Tommy's injury struggles, Mateos and Aja were really on a run together, and they really liked that pairing, so they kind of stuck with it. After that, I think personally, I don't know this, nobody told me, but from my experience with the team, I believe that they hadn't seen enough of Seb to really know what he's capable of, or know if there was a chance that he might stick around. So I think that's why you might have seen Seb the final couple games, because they know what they have with Tommy. So they know what they have with Tommy. They know the potential through the roof. CJ said that he thinks Tommy is the future of this club. So I don't think Tommy has anything to worry about. I think it was more about the other players and less about Tommy.
All right. So, yeah, what a heartbreaking way, though, for Seb to have a mistake in that last game. I really feel for him because I know he cares. Every player cares, and that's just embarrassing.
Well,
that's
it's tough, too, when you haven't seen significant playing minutes in a while, and you're thrown in the last game like that. So.
All right. We've got another question real quick from Facebook from Marco Matrivsky. Kaká to stay in Orlando, ?
Yes.
Undoubtedly. No doubt about it. Very committed, very invested.
100%. Yeah.
Super excited about the new stadium, to the point that I think there's a little bit of a difference. I would suspect last year's Kaká would have taken off already instead of waiting for the player coach evaluation wrap up, would have headed back to Brazil to meet with family or to hang out. But I've seen some Instagram photos of him still being in town. I think he's waiting with the rest of the club to wrap up with the coaches before he heads off. And I think he's excited about the next year.
He's very excited. He's very motivated. He knows he has unfinished business here. He's not sure what his body is going to look and feel like at the end of next season when his contract is up, whether he'll be able to continue playing longer than that. He would like to, but he said he'll evaluate himself at that time. So he has a mission. He wants to bring this team to the playoffs. He wants to bring a championship to Orlando, and he knows that his window to do that is closing. So
got a lot of work to do. But, we've seen the MLS table flip all crazy upside down. The two teams that were in the MLS final did not make the playoffs. So, anything is possible. Two non-playoff teams could be in the final next year. We'll see.
Yeah.
Next question from Twitter. Did we have any others? All right, we're wrapped up on Twitter. Thank you so much for all the Facebook Live questions.
Let me double check.
We'll do one quick check here, and then we'll catch up with Alicia to get some final thoughts. But thank you all again for joining us. Like I said, there's going to be a little bit of a lull. And then Monday and Tuesday, you have to follow @OS Alicia D, @OS Lions, and OrlandoSentinel.com. That's when you're going to start to see some of these latest developments about Orlando City as the coaches start to meet with the team, as we start to hear more about what's going on with the club. These are going to be the early signs, and then I have to warn you to pace yourself. We've gotten so many questions about what's next. There's going to be a little bit of a lull, and it's okay. You can just relax for a little while, and then it'll ramp back up again in early December. We're going to hear a lot more transaction news. Then there'll be a little Christmas holidays for everybody, and then in January you'll hear a lot more, and we'll start having them get ready for the early parts of
All right, last one.
All right.
Mick Marston wants to know our predictions for MLS Cup.
Oh. You go first. You just did your award ballot, which you spent a good hour on.
That took so long. It took way longer than I was expecting. I am going to say Colorado.
Okay. Oh, wait. He takes it against whom, though?
Against... Gosh, I want to say the Red Bulls.
That's what I'm saying.
But I almost feel like DC United might pull like a crazy upset.
What?
Yeah.
DC to go the 20th anniversary to win the first MLS Cup and then win the next one 20 years later, that bookend, and that would build so much bad blood or continue the bad blood with LA, which was like first to 5. So I like it, but I'm going with the Red Bulls, and I think Colorado is a good pick. There's some other ones in the West. Dallas is wild. I mean, the West is just, I mean, you could see any number of the teams that made the playoffs there on the West to shake things up. I wouldn't sleep on LA either. There's just all kinds of talent on that side of the table. So we'll see. But I'm picking the Red Bulls, and you are picking Colorado.
All right.
Hold
Do
us
we
to
have a
it.
bracket? Can we put money on it?
I don't know about that. I don't know about money, but we can put bracket rights. We'll work on a bracket situation. But for now, thank you all so much for joining us all season. It's been a joy to sit down and talk with you. Like I said, Monday, Tuesday, early next week. Keep following OS Alicia D at OS Lions as well for all the latest updates, OrlandoSentinel.com. And yes, it's going to be slightly quieter, but soccer never goes dark here.
Yeah, I'll have a few updates posting today, and then we'll have a big season wrap up running in Sunday's paper. So that should be, and that'll all go online as well. And then next week, some movement possible.
And a little bit on the Orlando Pride too. So
and some on the Pride,
keeping track of everything.
And then after that, I might take a few days off.
I don't know. We'll see. It's negotiable. All right. Thank you all for joining us again with Alicia DelGallo. I'm Iliana Limon-Romero at the Orlando Sentinel. Thank you.
Bye.